Good afternoon. We begin with sad but historic news. United States civil rights leader, Baptist minister, and two-time presidential candidate Reverend Jesse Jackson has died at the age of 84. His family confirmed that he passed peacefully this Tuesday morning, surrounded by loved ones. For more than 6 decades, Jesse Jackson stood at the center of American public life. He was a protege of Dr. King, founder of Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition, a presidential contender who broke barriers and a relentless advocate for the marginalized. He was a preacher who turned pulpits into platforms for justice. He was a political force who transformed protest into policy. And he was, for many, the embodiment of a simple but powerful call: keep hope alive. Today, we remember his life, his battles, his triumphs, his controversies, and his enduring faith in the possibility of change. Jesse Louis Burns was born on October 8, 1941, in Greenville, South Carolina, a city shaped by the rigid codes of Jim Crow segregation. His mother, Helen Burns, was a teenage high school student when she gave birth to him. He was later adopted by his stepfather, Charles Henry Jackson, whose surname he took and carried into history. The circumstances of his birth were complicated, and he spoke openly in later years about the stigma and struggle that marked his early life. Yet from those beginnings emerged a fierce determination to rise above limitation. Growing up in the segregated South meant learning early the boundaries imposed by race. Separate schools, separate drinking fountains, separate hopes, some believed. But young Jesse Jackson refused to accept the narrow definitions handed to him. He excelled academically and athletically. A gifted football player and a strong student, he earned a scholarship to the University of Illinois before transferring to North Carolina A&T State University, one of the nation's historically black colleges and universities. At North Carolina A&T, he found not only an education, but a movement. The early 1960s were a time of seismic change. Students were sitting in at segregated lunch counters, challenging laws and customs that had stood for generations. The spirit of protest was in the air, and Jackson joined it. He participated in demonstrations and organized fellow students. He learned that collective action could bend the arc of history. He was ordained as a Baptist minister in 1968, but his ministry had already begun in the streets long before the formal ceremony. The civil rights movement was gathering strength under the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Jackson gravitated toward that orbit. He joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the organization founded by King and other ministers to harness the moral authority of the black church in the fight for justice. Under King's mentorship, Jackson rose quickly. He was charismatic, articulate, and tireless. He organized boycotts and voter registration drives. He helped coordinate the SCLC's Operation Breadbasket, an initiative focused on economic justice that pressured corporations to hire black workers and invest in black communities. Jackson believed that civil rights without economic opportunity would be incomplete. Access to a lunch counter meant little without a job to pay for the meal. In April 1968, the movement suffered a devastating blow. Dr. King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, to support striking sanitation workers demanding fair wages and dignity. On April 4th, as King stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, a sniper's bullet struck him down. Jesse Jackson was there that evening. In the chaotic aftermath, he appeared before cameras, his clothes stained with blood. He spoke with urgency and anguish, declaring that the struggle must continue. Accounts of the precise moments on the balcony have been debated over the years, but there is no question that King's assassination marked a turning point for Jackson. At just 26 years old, he became one of the most visible young leaders to carry forward the movement's legacy. He was thrust into the national spotlight at a moment of grief and uncertainty. For many, he represented continuity. For others, he represented ambition. But for all, he was impossible to ignore. In 1971, he founded Operation Push, an acronym for People United to Save Humanity, later redefined as People United to Serve Humanity. For now, we leave you with the words that defined his journey and inspired countless others. Keep hope alive. Reverend Jesse Jackson, civil rights icon, presidential trailblazer, servant leader, has died at 84. His family asks for continued prayers as they prepare to honor his legacy.